In this tutorial, I will show you how to create your very own Spotify playlist dataset so that you can create amazing visualizations or data art projects without coding using n8n.io. All right, let's get started. The first thing we're gonna do is to put a simple manual trigger so that we can play with the workflow. Then what we want is to use the Spotify node to get all our playlists. So you can go here and check get users playlist, right? You can return all, it depends how many you have, right? And then you get the playlist here as a list of IDs and URL. Now that we are here, we want to pick only the URI, basically the ID, the part of the ID that we want. So in my case here, I have 58 playlists. I'm gonna use the edit field here to try to pick only what I want. So what I want is the ID I'm dragging and dropping, and I can also get the name if we want. Here, I'm testing this step, and then I have the playlist right there. Now that I'm here, I have all my data. What I want is to pick one of these playlists to create the data so that we have all the tracks for the playlist. So let's see, I'm saving the patch right now. So now it's saved. I'm going to filter, right? I want to be able to look and type just, I know I want to get this electro playlist. So I can just filter here, get some data and search for the name here. And I want to put this name to lowercase because it could be better to search. So just I type lowercase, you see this is actually pure JavaScript. So there's a bit of code, I'm sorry about this. This is how the framework works. But it's just to take the name and put it into lowercase. So that's gonna be easier to click here and say, if it starts with electro, and I'm gonna test this. Okay, and I have two. One is a playlist that I've subscribed and one is my own. So let's try to take my own. What I want is really this thing here, the ID, right? So this I'm gonna be doing in the next step and trying to pick again what I want. So I can just put an edit again so that it's the same up here. And I'm taking the ID, I'm dragging and dropping, testing, and then I should get only one, right? So I need to actually also filter and limit here to take only one, the first item. Okay, so that's the playlist I want. So now we are here. This is just to get from our own playlist to search in a way, right? This is where we search. We can maybe rename this as search for playlist, search by name here. Okay, now we have one playlist. So the issue with the node, so you could say, okay, now that we are here, we can also go to Spotify and get the all the tracks. So from here you can say get the playlist, and we'll ask you to give the ID here, which we now have. So we're all good. Now the issue with this node is that it limits to the first 100 tracks, which may be okay in your case, but if you have more, you need to do something a bit more smart to be able to loop over all the results and really make sure that you have all the tracks of your playlist. So I would say let's not use this node because it's limited, but in a way it's just a HTTP method, right? So this is just calling the official Spotify API. And so what we care about is to get the right credentials, which are in n8n. But if we have the right credentials, we have also, we know what API to call to get all the data we want for the playlist. So what I'm gonna put instead is this HTTP node, it's called HTTP request. And here it allows us to make any type of request. So here what we want is to have a predefined credential type and find our Spotify. So we don't need to relog again, right? And make sure that you select the one that you have. Okay. Now what is missing is, okay, what is the URL you're gonna call? It was actually before in the data, but we saw it. So if I go back here, when we were editing the fields, we actually had the URL here. So if I can put it there if you want again. It's the same. And so we have the already, but the API, which is basically this part. So this I can copy by hand, paste it here. But of course, now what I want is an expression, because I want to be able to put whatever ID that I got from before, right? I don't want to simply type it, because they would not be very scalable. So if I put this double curly braces, it tells you, hey, you have this earlier node that you can pick from. So I think it was called, let's go back to see what the name of this guy, right? Edit fields. So this one also, we can rename. We make sure that we have just one result, and we can call this node get playlist ID, right? So if I rename it, get playlist ID. Now, when I'm in my HTTP request, here I can actually sort of pick the right node. It's there. And then I can, when I just press dot, it automatically basically, gives you the JSON that is inside. So first, let's try to do item, then JSON, and then ID. You see, I've just basically followed what was pre-generated for me, so that I can get exactly the item that I want from the JSON, like what the other node is returning as JSON. And now you notice that this gets updated live, because this is an expression. And now I have this right ID here, which is pretty good. So let's try this. Now I'm saving, testing the step, and I have some data. Output data is large, which is good. It tells us that, okay, we've actually tried to pick some of the songs, and we don't have everything, because as I said, it was going to be limited. But let's see, right? So now that we are here at the HTTP request, let's once again put this edit, which is basically the bread and butter for data manipulation in n8n. Try to see what was before and try to edit. So let's try to show the data and see if we can render it without crashing. It's not that big, but I don't know why it warns you here. Now this is what this playlist is about, and you notice that it's massive, because we have a lot of available market stuff, all the images, so to tell you that the song is actually available in whatever country you are. So now that we are here, we need to pick the data that we want here. So the first thing we could do, though, is to try to split it into several items, right? Because here it's not very practical for us to get all of this data, and we know that this is going to be a list of tracks. So if I go back here after my HTTP request, the first thing I can do is just to use this node that's called split. And once again, I need to show the data, and I can drag so let's show the data, drag, and it will basically transform one object into individual tracks. So if I go here, I'm folding something. What I really want is the track thing, right? So if I drag and drop the tracks, then I should have for each, all in testing, and I will have basically an array of all the different tracks. Let's see if it works. So I think it's track items. So it's track dot items. Okay, so now that I have track.items, I don't want just the track. I want what's really inside track and all the items here. This guy, which is, and you notice that there's actually a limit of 100, as I was telling you before. So let's see if we go back here. I'm saving the patch. If I go back to my edit node now, and we test the step again, or we can just manually map it, you see that for each track, this is 100 items, and then I can, so just to warn you, this n8n thing only shows you one of the items, because, but it's just whatever I'm extracting here as an operation will be applied to all the items. So now that I have this, I can pick some interesting values. So for instance, the preview URL, I like it. And we can rename this to just preview URL. So if we want to get access to the MP3 file, basically, maybe we want to get, so this the album. So we want the image. We want to get also the biggest image, which is always the first here. We're gonna call this image. What else? We want, of course, we want the ID of the track, which is not there yet. So we want the artists. But before we go to the artist, let's try to simply get the ID. The duration could be good, right? If we can put it there and call duration. But maybe we're gonna divide this because it's in milliseconds, so by 1,000, so it goes back in seconds like this. The name of the track for sure. Name. Is local is going to be interesting, because if you have local files on Spotify, you need to remove them if we want to be able to get the features that are in their database. If it's just a local song, they don't really know and they cannot really do anything with it. So this we need to make sure we have. The ID, right? That's very important. This is how we're going to identify our track. And yeah, we have it. So we don't have the artist. And so this is something that we need to do. And there's something that you cannot really do simply, because let's say you have a list of artists like this one here. I want to have all the artists. If I just drag and drop this guy here, it's going to be the first artist, which is maybe enough, right? If I drag and drop here, it will tell you, this is artist 0. But what if I have 10 artists? How can I concatenate basically all the names of all the artists into one simple array, right? And for this, you have an expression that is basically how n8n proceeds. So as I said before, everything that is here is valid JavaScript. And they have this JSON language query that uses this library called JMESPath here, like this. And this library allows us to create quite complex queries and to basically say, go over each of the artist array, and for each of them, take the name and put back the result into an array, which is exactly what we have here, an array of 2 different artists because we are looping over it. So that took me a bit of time to find the correct syntax, but once you get it, it's okay, right? And it's an array. So I'm going to call this artists, and then we can test the step. So it looks good, right? I can put it back in JSON to make sure that it's okay. You see, we have a preview URL, the image, the duration, the name, whether the file is local, the ID of the track, and the artist. So with this already, we are ready for the next step, which is basically first to pick more items, because as I said before, this is just 100 items. So I'm saving this, and I'm going back now to my HTTP request node. So there is a trick in this node, and because it's so common that you need to do this operation many times, many APIs are limiting you, right? You cannot go too fast, and you have some also a pagination. So it tells you, okay, this is the first 100 items, then you need to offset it to the next, starting from 100, the number 100, because it's 0 to 99. And then you can pick the next 100 items, and you can loop like this. So there is a mode in this HTTP request node that you can do the pagination. If you go here to option, there is something called pagination. And what we know is that we want to change the URL and basically get the next values. And we could see this before when we inspected the, if I go back here, and I inspect the output of this guy. So I go just here and I'm reading the output, which can be a bit big, but let's see. Let's try if it works. You will see that we can find the next URL. So basically the URL for the next batch of 100 songs. And this is what we care about. So I'm going to say in the next URL is going to be, I'm going to put this again, the JavaScript code. And put in expression, sorry. Okay. So there is this n8n variable response. It's already there. Dot body dot next, which is not there yet because we didn't put the. So this is, I basically had to find it for you. For now, don't worry because we need to rerun for this to exist. And as long as we have this, we want to continue looping. When we don't, so we want to stop when it's no. So basically we don't have anything else to fetch. So now let's try again. I'm gonna, and we want to put a bit of time between two requests. Otherwise we could, choke the API and have, so let's put 2000, right? Two seconds before fetching the next 100 songs. So I'm here and I'm testing this step. Let's see what we get. Okay, we see that the data is 3 times as big as before. So probably it worked and we have more and more items. So I think this is it for the HTTP request. Now we can still split it out. And I think it's just items now. Let's see again. Yes, because we changed the tracks. We changed a bit the API by putting the offset in the limit. So now we don't need the track. We just need to get the item in them. And now you see I have a lot of pages. Yeah, I should not have clicked on this, but I basically have the 218 tracks of my playlist. So we are not limited anymore with this API request. That was the basic node of n8n. And now I can still edit my fields and only get what I care about. And that's going to be much faster because we have like hundreds of fields. And now we are basically selecting only, I don't know, 5 per track. So now we have the 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, just a bit more. So now we have this cool data set, which basically is our playlist, curated playlist. So then we can rename this guy and call it curated playlist. Okay. So what now? Now that we have this curated playlist, we would like to first filter to remove, as I said, the tracks that are only local. That this is important because you may put tracks in your playlist, but if they are not, if they are local, we cannot get the features. So I'm gonna drag is local. I'm gonna make sure that this is a Boolean and this is false. So I don't want anything that is local. And I also want just to double check that we have a URI. We should always have it. And this is something that I missed. Here I didn't take the URL, which we're gonna need. So let me go back to the previous step here and simply add the URL of the playlist, of the track, sorry. Here. Okay. Here, I'm taking the URL and I'm verifying that this guy is not empty. So it's a string and it's not empty. Okay. Now I'm testing the step and you see I've discarded 15 items. So they were like local tracks that are not in Spotify on their server. So that's my curated data set now. I mean, like, without the local stuff. So I can save this. Now what we would like to do is to have for each of the tracks here to get these features, because don't forget that the goal here is to create a data set. We have part of the data set, but it's not very fancy because we cannot really know anything about the track yet. What we would like to get is some features, as I told you, whether it's acoustic, is it danceable, is it a lot of speech on the track, and so forth. And then we come back to the second part. So here we have 200 items. If you request once again with the Spotify node here that I showed you before, Spotify, and you get here the get audio features of a track. It's cool, but it's gonna fail because you're gonna hit the limit and they're gonna say, no, you are rate limited, you query too much of my API, so I'm blocking you. So we need a way to simply get to loop basically by batch, right? To go bit by bit, maybe 20 by 20, wait, and then continue and get the rest. So that's the trick we need to do here. So it's not gonna directly, we're not gonna call this guy directly. What we're gonna do instead is we're gonna do a loop. So we're gonna say, I'm gonna delete this node and go here and say loop over item. So I'm gonna split this into, bash here. And I'm gonna say, okay, how much, you want to split how many, so maybe 30 by 30, right? Okay. And you see it makes the loop automatically for us. So now our job is to go and replace this loop. So now, okay, I want to get the track. So I need to execute the node and get the URI here. Okay, that's what the node wants. But before looping back here, I need to do something else. Maybe I need to filter some of the data. So if I go here and I test the step, you see that we have a lot of data. That's what we wanted. But there's also a bit too, we need to filter out because we don't care about this analysis URL. We can only filter some of them. So what we can do though, is when we go here, we can do after this an edit field. And we're gonna say, I want to include everything but all selected. And I don't want this. I don't want this track there. I don't, the URI, we have it already. So I don't think it's very useful, but this type here. What else? Duration, we had it before. And the rest we can keep, right? This is the data that we really care about. So let's just test this. And you see we have a cleaner data set here. So now that we have this, we need to loop, right? And to continue. But before looping, we need to wait a bit. So let's wait. And let's say we're gonna wait, 5 seconds. What? Yeah. You have to get away with the minimum, right? But let's say 3 seconds is enough, hopefully. And now I'm gonna loop back here. Delete this guy. Delete to make sure we have only one loop. And goes back here. Stop the workflow. This is important because then if you click, it's gonna fail. The loop is not gonna reset properly. And once we have the result, then we should have the combination of all the features of all our playlists. So let's save and try this. I'm just gonna make a no op here. Just nothing, just to launch the workflow and see if it works till there. So I'm clicking. It's requesting. You can really see step by step. Okay, first loop, 30. It should go back. And then you have another, it's going to increment here. You're going to see number 2, number 3. So it's how many times this node has been run, basically. So if we have 200 items, 203, we need to divide it into a bunch of 30s, and we wait how many turns. So it's going to be not that long, but just a bit more. We wait. The thing is running, and we technically only have to do this once, because once we have our data set, then we're all set for this playlist. Of course, we can also decide to execute this whole workflow periodically, maybe every day, every hour, every month, to always get the new data set. So now we have our 200 items. Let's see if I inspect this guy, and we see we have all the IDs, all the items, and with all the features for our 203, which is pretty good. Now we can edit the fields. We did that here, so it doesn't really matter. What matters now is to merge the data, because this is only the features, but we want to also get the URL, the image, and everything that we had before before doing this loop here. So this is the next node we're gonna use. It's gonna call merge. And what I want is to combine two things. And I want to combine by ID actually. So I can type ID because I know it, or you can, if you don't believe me, you can always do the same thing. You connect this guy here, you connect this guy here, sorry. First, and then when you open the node, you already have the fields, right? So we know there's the ID here in input 1, and we know that in input 2 we have ID as well. So I want to merge both, and what I want is to enrich the second input, which is basically the one with the track and the image. And yeah, this we don't care. Let's try. Let's step, and now we have all of items plus the features. I'm not really sure why we have two more items there, if one is repeating or not. Technically should have been the same. Let's try this again. Yeah, I'm not sure. Is it just a bug here? Or, but yeah, we should have everything here, like a complete data set now. But yeah, I'm a bit surprised by the two other items. Now that we have here, we can, if we want, filter again. I can save the patch. But I mean, technically we're done, right? This is the data set. We have all the features, the preview, the date, and we have the local thing. We can also remove it because now that we have filtered this data, it doesn't really matter. So if I can go again into this edit node and just include everything except the local one, right? Test the step, and it's gonna be the same here. Saving this, and now we would like to persist this file, right? To save it somewhere on disk so that we can load it again or in our visualization or serve it. And I will show you how to first create the file and then just serve the file. So it's very fast for your web server. So what we need to do now is to convert this to a file, convert JSON to binary data. And what we want is to convert to JSON. I want to put everything in one file. Sure. Okay, I'm testing. It's gonna create this kind of file here with the size, nice. But this file now is still in memory. It's not yet persisted on the disk. So now I need to put a node, it's called write, file from disk, file to disk. And now I need to put it somewhere. So in my n8n instance, everything is under file. So I can do this playlist, and it's electro.json. And the field is called data. So this should work as is. Let's see. I'm clicking here. And now, okay, I have the file on disk. So this part of the workflow is now done. I have my data and I made the file on disk. Now, what I would like to do though is that use this JSON somewhere. So there's two ways. Either you just download it. You can just go on your files on your disk now and just download the file. Or the other technique would be to serve this file through an API so that you can call it from anywhere in the world and always get the file, which was what I think it's very convenient if you have large files and you don't want to, to keep everything here. So I've shown this in the previous video, but let's start again. It's quite simple. We're going to put another node here called Webhook, which is basically a way for us to create this URL and be able to get some data. So I'm going to say, okay, I want to get the response to Webhook node. So I'm going to be able to read the file and only answer when I want to, not just right away. So I have this Webhook. Now we wrote the file. I want to read it back. So I'm reading the file. I think it was called files, playlist, electro.json. So we cannot test the step because we are waiting for the webhook. But what we can do though is to do this. You can just delete and test manually here. Stop the workflow, go back, test the step. Okay, we have the data, it's there, all good. Now we just need to respond with the data. as a binary file because it's a file that we have created. And I think we just need to make sure we found the right field, which is called data. And yeah, it's gonna complain because we didn't connect it to now it's not connected to Webhook anymore. But if I go here and start the workflow again, this should work as before. So now we have this API. If I want this to serve, I want to serve this API to my front end. What I need to do is to save, activate here. When I activate the workflow, now the URL that is basically the production URL is available. And I can go to my cables patch or anywhere you want and be able to request the file. So let's try to do this very quickly. I'm just gonna create an empty project and create a main loop and then create an HTTP request, put a string, type the URL, and automatically we have the data. This becomes as an object, and as we've seen, we have to convert this object to an array because it's a list of tracks. And now if I click here, I should have all my data available in my cables project. I hope that you like this tutorial using n8n to create your own custom dataset based on your own Spotify taste. And I also hope that you see the potential of this. And of course, we're going to create more videos in the future using this kind of dataset, the personalized dataset. But here, just to give you some ideas, food for thoughts, you could make a visualization and filter one of your big playlists into different, using the features that we have here. You could wire this to filter on the user interface, have some kind of recommendation, play around with the thumbnails now that we have the images. And don't forget that Cables is an interactive environment so that you can also listen to the 30-second extract and share this, deploy this as a website and share it with your friends. So it's also a very cool way to be creative with your own data and have something a bit more personalized than just sharing a link to a Spotify playlist. I hope that this video inspired you, and I hopefully see you in the next one.